Welcome to the Driven Young podcast with Byron Dempsey, dedicated to educating and inspiring the younger generation around entrepreneurship and practical life skills we aren't taught in school. Created for young people who seek direction in establishing their goals and passions. This podcast provides a platform for discussing the steps taken by professionals in their field related to handling finances, making money online, starting a business, growing a network, and much more. And now your host, Byron Dempsey.
When I think of important topics that were barely covered in school, getting control of your finances has got to be on the top of that list. Simple finance, like interest, what the hell is it? Implementing a saving strategy from a young age, or how to buy a home in your 20s. Should you be buying a brand new car? Or how to live in Sydney, one of the most expensive cities in the world, at a young age. This is all covered in the first episode of the Driven Young podcast. I'm your host, Byron Dempsey, and today's guest is entrepreneur/mortgage broker, Aaron Christi David. He runs a company called Atelier alongside his wife and specialises in helping people buy a home or investment property. This may not sound too exciting, but it is so important we learn this stuff early on so we don't reach 30 years old with no savings and no financial assets. Super excited you're here to join me, and if you want to follow me along this journey or reach out to me, I'll be posting content all over social media. Just search my name, Byron Dempsey, or Driven Young Podcast on Instagram or whichever platform you prefer. Now, over to Aaron. Welcome, Aaron, to the podcast.
Thanks very much, Byron.
Stoked to have you. I just thought we'd start off by kind of asking a bit about your story. And, you know, the main reason I want to have you on here was talk finance and, you know, anything to do with money around for the younger generation, because I know there's a huge thing that we don't learn in school.
Spot on.
So I thought we'd just start off, you know, tell me a bit about you. What's your story? How did you get to where you are? You know, I know you didn't start off in mortgage broking and finance.
Yep.
So yeah, tell me a bit about you.
Love it, mate. So I'd like to say I went to a traditional pathway. School, I went to a pretty good school, academic-wise. Pathway to uni, so I did study my undergrad in commerce and marketing, and then from there went into a corporate career as well. So I think for me, when I look back at my early career, everything happened at the right time, and I met the right people. And what I mean by that is, you know, some good friendships that I had, through my uni days, the people that I met at my work. So a bit of background into my work, I started my early days at Wizard Home Loans under Mark Boris and the team there. So kind of, I'd almost say that they were the early type of disruptors when it wasn't a word back then, for example. And I guess learning to be really nimble, agile, just kind of break all the rules. And that's what that type of brand was. And then coming to somewhere like a big bank like Commonwealth Bank, which where I finished my career, was almost the exact opposite, where it's, you're just a number in a big system, for example. And that's probably where I just felt the corporate career wasn't for me. I think it's not that I had to buck the trend and leave it, but I think for me, being in a big corporate career just meant that I wasn't at my best. I think it gave me a really good grounding to where I am now. And I guess from there, I've kind of springboarded out and started my own business. It's been about 5 years that I've been out of corporate and running my own business now as well, mate. And so the core of our business is mortgage broking. I run that business called Atelier with my wife, Bernadette. And that in itself is, I've broken all the rules when it comes to business. Don't get involved with your wife and family. My brother-in-law's in the business. But we love it, mate. It works for us. And
it's working,
Yeah, exactly, man. And we love it. So my journey from kind of where I started from a graduate to where I am now, completely different shift in my career, mate. Yeah. And
so when you went from high school to uni, I'm very interested in this kind of section, because I know, it's so, the way I see high school is they kind of shove ATAR, finish high school, go to uni. And a lot of people I see get pressured to go to uni, even though they're not 100% sure what they wanted to do. So did you know what you wanted to do? Did you take a year off? How did you kind of figure out what your passion was?
I didn't take a year off, and probably in hindsight, I wish I did. My wife, Bernadette, did, and she traveled and worked, and I think she grew out of that. So I kind of have a test case for her, and for me, I just went straight into it. And maybe it suited me, because if I lost that momentum, perhaps I may have not gone back to uni. So for me, the way I looked at uni was, it gave me a chance to start something and finish it, right? If I look back at my mates and all the people that I went to uni with in undergrad, very few people are actually doing what we studied.
And I noticed that as well, yeah.
You find that huge. In a lot of courses. People will start science degrees and end up in banking. People will start commerce degrees. I had a friend go into dentistry. Why? Like, how does it work? But I think what it does, it gives you the ability, a couple of things that I'm not flying the flag for a tertiary education, but what I believe I got out of it was some really good friendships. It's a great time in your life when you're early 20s to kind of sit around and turn up to some classes. But it also teaches you to be self-disciplined in terms of starting something, finishing it. And with uni, it's not like school where you get put on detention for not doing the work. You don't do it, you failed. And I failed miserably. I failed 3 of my first 4 subjects in semester 1.
And you just got to repeat.
I did have to repeat it all, right?
More money, more time. So you kind of got to...
Correct. But I think I learned how to be going, no one's going to really put me in the naughty corner or write a letter to my parents to say I didn't do it. It's all voluntary. That's what uni is. So it's on you to kind of, I guess, be self-sufficient to study. And I learned that about myself, that, all right, if I'm going to be here, it's a choice to be at uni ultimately, right? If I'm going to be here, then why don't I give this a good crack? And that's probably that turning point that I had made where I enjoyed it, but I also realized that it's kind of on me to really push myself if I want to achieve.
Yeah, and you used a word there which I'm very passionate about, because I think our generation lacks it so badly in discipline.
Yep.
And I think, we get given, we've got the phones, everything kind of comes so quickly, and we really lack a lot of discipline. And I think uni does do that. I think that sounds like that was something that really helped you kind of going from school, where it's like, it doesn't matter if I don't do this. Well, I get detention. It's not a huge deal. And then you go uni and suddenly you fail and you go, oh shit, I've actually got to lift my game. Yeah. I've just lost 10 grand in fees and I've just lost, 6 months I've got to redo.
Yeah. I mean, discipline cuts across anything, right? I think if you looked at anyone that goes to the gym regularly that wants to stay fit, discipline's going to keep you going.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you look at someone that's in a corporate career that wants to do well, discipline will keep them going. If you look at someone that's high performance sports, mate, discipline's with us. So I think that type of word, if you kind of make that the center of what you do, what we do is a choice, mate. But ultimately, discipline keeps you going, doesn't it?
Agree. And I think that's something I really want to tackle for the future is discipline.
Yeah.
I think my dad did a year in the army after school.
Yep.
And he says, that taught him heaps of discipline, which he's used to apply. And so I think there's lots of options you can do if you don't know what to do. Take a gap year. I know is a great option. I kind of wish I did that.
Yep.
But I'm super happy with where I am.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but I just think, we kind of get forced down this route. And it's like, and it works for a lot of people, but for some people it doesn't. But I think we'll move on to some finance stuff.
Sure.
So I want to get into some fun finance stuff.
Yep.
And so you specialize in helping people buy homes, first homes, investments. What do what's your specialty?
Yeah, my specialty is people buying investment properties. Typically it's their first one, and then we've helped people build a property portfolio that goes in excess to 5, 6, and some of our investors have built properties in portfolios that exceed 10 properties.
Yeah, right.
That's for certain type of individuals.
Yeah.
Some people are happy with a couple of properties, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that as well.
And why would you recommend property as an investment?
I think it's part of the mix when it comes to investing. I think it's secure. So in terms of getting a loan for it, it's quite easy. I think people maybe look at investing in property as being quite difficult. That's our job, is to kind of navigate you through why is it hard and what's stopping you from buying an investment property. Buy shares, for example. Put it towards superannuation, save it into a term deposit. There's so many ways cryptocurrency. There's so many ways to invest. This is just one part. And in fact, we're huge advocates of having a really, what they call diversified, is a very adult word, but having a really balanced portfolio of where your money's spread. Property can be one part of that mix, for example, as well, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And in your bio, or in one of your bios on your website, it mentions that you had a client who was 18 years old who bought their first property.
Yeah.
And I guess my question kind of is, is it still possible? There's these memes going on that, my generation will never be able to buy property, avocado toast, all that sort of stuff. And then, property, where I live, it's about $1 million is the average price.
For a house.
I think,
right?
$750,000, $800,000 in Sydney.
Yep.
Which is just astronomical when, you go to uni, you're earning a job for 60 grand.
Yes.
It just seems impossible, even to get a deposit.
Spot on.
And so how did that person achieve that? And how do you think, people who are in high school or uni can start saving or start, mentally preparing to buy a property?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'll give you that example, the 18-year-old chomping at the bit to kind of buy her first investment property. She'd been working kind of casually through a school last couple of years, had saved up a fair bit. Now she was lucky, and she'll openly say that she was lucky that her parents matched her deposit dollar for dollar. Yeah. So it's what we call skin in the game. So parents said, whatever you save, we'll kind of contribute.
Yeah.
And so that gave her a goal to work towards, right? So that's one example of an investor who's said, I'm going to get into the property market. Mum and dad were able to give her a slight bit of support. If I was to look at someone that didn't have family support, maybe not as early as 18, but it still quite is achievable into your early 20s. And we've had, clients early in their 20s. I mean, I think I've got a 22-year-old has 2 properties. As someone that's 24 has 3 properties. So they're certainly what I'd call like the 1%ers. Like they're certainly the lucky ones in terms of they've got a goal and they're fixated on it. Because you're still young. Like some people go, look, I want to travel. I want to enjoy life. Exactly. I don't want to have a mortgage that forces me not to travel. So again, it's not for everyone. But if it's something that catches your fancy and you are attracted to it, then absolutely soak up as much information as you can. Find investors that have been there, done that. And that's what we did for this this investor.
Yeah.
She was young. We matched her up that had a portfolio that what she wanted to achieve. And we said, look, learn from someone that's been, tread that path as well, kind of bounce some ideas and almost act a bit like a mentor of sorts.
Yeah, of course.
To help her get where she wanted to. Yeah.
I mean, 18 is ridiculously young. I mean, I'm 21 and after high school, I don't think I had any money. Like all my money went into my car.
Yes.
And then Rego every year, which, hit me hard.
We're in survival mode, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so, I guess it's kind of just like working a part-time job. It seems impossible. And when you're in uni, you're probably working part-time, you're going out. So I guess, it would take someone, but I guess a point I kind of wanted to bring up was, and I'll see what your thoughts are on this. Yeah. I recently just set up in my Commonwealth account, all these automations. So as soon as I get paid, this much goes into savings, this blah, blah. It's super easy nowadays.
Yeah.
And you kind of realize, $200 a week compounded, or not compounded, but over 5 years is almost 50 grand,
correct,
which is enough for a deposit.
Yes.
And 5 years isn't long. So I think if people can kind of get that shift, it's just increments over a long period of time can actually add up.
Yeah.
And then you're obviously getting interest in your savings account or whatever. Do you have a saving strategy? Do you recommend a sort of saving strategy? What would you recommend to younger people?
There's multiple ways. I think one particular way that I like is, I mean, when you and I earning, we get paid by our employer, the first thing that comes out is tax, right? The government gets paid first and then we live off the rest. And typically we pay bills, we'll have our going out money, our living expenses money, and then we save the rest. We need to actually have our savings come out second. So tax comes out first, our savings comes out second, and then we learn to live off the rest.
Find a way to live off whatever's left. Yeah.
And then you typically live within your means as well.
Which is what's that Parkinson's law?
Right.
Yeah, whatever, I can't remember the exact definition, but whatever you've got, you'll find a way to work with. If you've got a week to do the assignment, you'll do it in a week. If you've got 2 nights, you'll do it within that 2 nights.
Spot on. And it's like when you're working casual, like if you have less hours that week, magically you've got to find a way to budget within those hours that the pay that you're getting less. Whereas summer holidays, you might get paid far more, and then you kind of go, well, at the end of my holidays, where's all my money gone? You found a way to spend that extra cash that you made as well, isn't it? Which
is a beauty why I love the automations, because for me, I get paid I pay myself because I'm a business owner, but I get paid on a Thursday, and then on Friday, half of that just goes out into different accounts.
Correct.
And so it's like,
so you don't see it.
I never even see it. It doesn't, you're not like, oh, I'm missing that money.
Yeah.
I also move it into a separate bank, the savings account.
Beautiful.
So I can't just transfer it instantly.
Love it.
Because that's something I've been doing for a long time. I'll just dip in and it takes, but now it's different banks. It's 3 days to transfer, and it's like, oh, that's annoying.
Right.
So that's kind of a strategy that I'm using.
Yeah.
And it's real simple. That's the sort of thing I think we should be learning in school. Something as bare simple as, putting in savings. We have a splurge account. I think it's the barefoot investor strategy.
Barefoot would be all over this.
Yeah. Which is like, it's not much, like $50 a week, but if you don't do anything for a week.
If you're that $50, you'd just find a way to spend it.
Well, that's what the splurge is. You basically have to spend it on stupid fun stuff, for you to just let loose. Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So we'll move on. So I wanted to talk about, in terms of buying a first home and living in and rent and investing. You say you specialize more in investing.
Yes.
So is it smarter to save up and purchase a home and move into it, or save up, purchase a home and use the equity to rent?
Yeah, sure thing.
Or, best case scenario, just stay at home.
Yeah. Oh, if you can stay at home for as long as you can, that's the best. It's the best time of your life. You might contribute towards the house, but I think your parents obviously want to see you succeed. We have parents with grown adults as kids that still want to help their children, right? And I think it's great. I think it's noble, but when I see people do it on their own, I see the ownership that they've got over it. They value it a little bit more compared to when the bank of mum and dad gave you the leg up.
Of course, yeah.
Some people go down the path of, I don't want any parent support. I want to do it on my own. And I tip my hat to them as well. I'm not sure about your listeners, but I'm not part of the lucky sperm club. Like we were, I'd say we're middle class. Like we were 3 meals a day. We're from a loving home, but we certainly didn't have that much money to kind of give us additional support.
I'm exactly
to buy a house,
the same.
Right? So I think in my mind, I'll go, well, that's not an option. That's okay. I've got to live with it. But then it's on me to kind of make the best use of my life as I can and build my own wealth as well, which I think is fair, because I don't think it's on my parents to get me to this point and then keep spoon feeding me as well. To answer your question about, do I buy my first home or do I buy my first investment property? It's a common one that comes up, and I think it's very unique to everyone. I'll give you a few pros and cons.
Yeah.
So if I bought my first house, for example, with a view that I lived in it, but suddenly I want to travel or I want to take a job interstate, or I don't like that area anymore, now I'm stuck with it. So I bought it with the intention to live in it, but now I'm not going to live in it.
And then if you're not living in it, it's just eating on what you still have to pay for it.
Well, you put a renter in there, and they're going to pay your mortgage, right? But that property was never bought with intention as an investment property. So it was bought with the intention for you to live in. You move into it, you generally spend, I don't know how much on like renovating the property to make it stylish. So it's sucking up all your money for not much of a return.
Yeah.
Whereas if you buy your first property as an investment property, you can still travel, because if you bought really well, the rent is going to cover the mortgage repayments and also the outgoings as well. So what we're hoping for is that property sits in the background, doesn't really cost you a lot to maintain it or to contribute towards it, but everything you're saving still can kind of pay off the mortgage as well.
But you're paying it off the home.
You're paying off the property.
Yeah, exactly.
And the income that's coming in from the people living in it is now helping to pay your mortgage off as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can rent where you want to, because typically your rent is going to be less than your mortgage repayment. So you can rent where you want to, buy where you can afford. It's what they call being a rent investor.
Yeah.
So rent where you want to live, buy where you can afford to. It's a perfect model until you get later in life where you go, now I know where I want to live. I want to put down roots.
I want to settle down. Yeah.
I think when we got married, we moved every year.
Yeah.
Right. We moved five different houses in 5 years because we just got itchy feet. We're like, why don't we move to Coogee? Why don't we move here? And we're like, renting gave us the flexibility to move to different areas and check it out, experience a different lifestyle, for example. Whereas if we bought our own home,
you're trapped.
You paid a lot of money to call somewhere home, which after a while you may not want to call home, or you outgrow, for
especially at a young age. Like you might not even want to live in Australia.
Mate, it almost goes back to our point about uni. Like you don't know what you're studying, and that may take you on a different path. You bought a property, but it may not suit you in the next few years as well. But you spend a lot of money. It's hard to sell. It's hard to offload.
So it sounds like for younger listeners, you probably don't want to buy a home to live in for until you are 100% sure where you want to live.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating.
I think it's a good strategy if you get committed to it. And if you think about it, if you're mid-20s, even by the time you make that decision, and you have a property that's going to hold for 10 years, right? By the time you're mid-30s, that property potentially could double, right? And now you're in a position where you could take that property now, leverage that property to buy your own home when you're settled kind of in your mid-30s going, typically, that's when you want to start settling down maybe. Yeah. Think about family, or if that's part of your own personal journey, you're a bit more grown up, a bit more settled at that point as well. Whereas in your 20s, you should have itchy feet. Yeah. You should want to explore the world.
20s is.
And I always look at your 20s. It's a perfect storm in your 20s, right, Byron? Because you're the youngest and you're earning the least that you probably will in your whole lifetime. Yeah. Maybe you've graduated from uni. Maybe you're working. If you're a grad role, you're earning 55, 65 maybe. But then you're expected to drive a nice car, buy nice clothes.
And live in Sydney, one of the most expensive cities. Correct,
right? Travel. You might meet a significant other, buy a ring. Organize a wedding. I'm like, all that while you're earning 60, it's financially impossible to do.
And paying off debt.
Correct. And paying, or if you're paying rent or you're paying debt, that's where a big chunk of your actual income is going to go, right? Yeah. So I say to anyone that's sub 30, I'm like, pick 2 or 3 out of those. Find the love of your life and get married, and don't spend a lot on a wedding, right? or enjoy life, go travel, and then when you come back and you know where you want to live and you got careers, now you can buy your own home.
Yeah.
But don't try to do it all, because ultimately you're going to end up at 30 just going, I feel like I haven't done much. But that 20 to 30 decade should be all about enjoying life, is what I feel. But also still you can still put down seeds to financially plan for your future as well.
Yeah. So enjoy life, but be smart about it.
Correct. Yeah.
Which I think is super important, because some people, I've seen some people who just go out every week. They just, which is fine. That's what I want to do. But I think, by the time they hit 30, they're going to be like, oh shit, I should have.
Where did all my money go?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what the trick is. I'll tell you what I've done is I've kept all my notice of tax assessments. As I'm nerdy like that. But if I look back going, how much have I actually earned in my lifetime? And it will scare you when you go, how much have I earned in my lifetime? And where has all my money gone?
And you've got nothing in your bank. And you probably, by the time you're 30, a few $100,000.
Correct. Like if you're like 20, if you had 50,000 over a few years, for example, that's a lot of money, but where's it all gone?
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's awesome. I love it. I think, one thing that I think in school, even uni, I'm not sure about uni, but, really don't learn. I didn't know about this properly until I was like 19 or 20. It's like, what actually is interest? How does interest work? We always hear it in school. You hear it in the movies. It's like, I buy this home, I gain interest.
Yeah.
This is 2.5% interest. And I did economics, so I learned a bit more about it. But that was only 13 people out of 180 in the year. And we talk about, interest rates, once they were 20%, right now they're this. What actually is interest? How does it affect us when we're buying a car or a home or, credit cards? Is it good? Is it bad? What actually is it?
So interest, I guess you could look at it two ways. One is if you're borrowing the money. So what's the cost to borrow the money? So you're talking about interest rates. My parents borrowed money at 17% as an interest rate, back in the 90s, for example. Now interest rates are kind of 3%. So you can start to see that's a huge difference on where interest rates are. So that's if you're borrowing money. And
when you're borrowing money, you want it lower or higher?
You want it as low as possible.
Yeah. So 17% is
it's
huge.
Astronomical. It'd be like the difference would be a personal loan versus a home loan, right? So a personal loan, the interest rates are typically over 10 to 12%.
Yeah.
It goes well above that sometimes. You look at a home loan, it's 3%. Now that's got to do with the fact that we've got real good security, which is a home, whereas a personal loan, there's no security. It's on a holiday, it's on a car. There's multiple ways to spend it, right? So that's why the interest rate can vary so much, and it's so confusing, which some of the people get overwhelmed by it or confused by it, right? The other one is when you're saving money. So if you've got an interest rate on your savings account, you're really not getting much. I mean, savings interest rates are 1%, maybe 2% at the moment. So then that's why people look to invest that money, because the interest rate on the return isn't that high. Yeah. And I don't think we need to overcomplicate it more than that, but it's just kind of go, if you're borrowing money, how much is that money actually costing you to borrow?
Yeah,
essentially is
that's what interest. Yeah,
correct.
So 17%. It's basically saying if you borrow $1, you're going to owe the bank $1.17.
Yeah. Yep.
Or $100, you owe them $117.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
how much is it costing you to actually borrow that money?
But when you are putting money in the bank, if it was at 17%, the bank's going to give you that $17.
Correct. You'll now earn that money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's positive and negative interest.
Correct.
And so we want to be putting it in and earning it
at a high interest rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is hard to find because we're at the moment we're in a low rate environment, trying to find ways to get such a good return, which is why people have, again, very broad statement, which was why something like crypto was so attractive, because it was really a great way to make instant money.
Yeah, yeah.
And everyone out there is like flogging instant money. If it smells like a rat, it's probably a rat.
Yeah. And then
people have made money. You can't deny that. But I don't think there's any shortcuts to making money.
Yeah. Yeah. If you got in quick and you got out quick, crypto was good.
Correct, right? Or you got in super early and then you kind of held it when everyone told you were mad to buy it, then perhaps. But
I think I've got some money, like $500 in crypto. I'm hoping one day it'll just skyrocket up.
This is it. And and then you say hope's not a strategy. But you know what? Like you look at that going, I could afford to. That's my money. It's part of your splurge.
It's
right?
It's not much.
You go, look, I can afford to lose it but if it increases it, it's a benefit. It's a bonus.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think of it as even my money, to be honest. I think of it, it's gone, and if I get it back, it's exciting.
Yeah.
But I went in when it was all hot, and just immediately. But once again, it was $500.
Yeah.
Wasn't the end of the world. But moving into interest, I want to bring up cars.
Yeah.
people get very seduced by cars at a young age. You know, get the girl, get the guy, you know, whatever it is, makes you look sexier than you actually are. Getting a nice car. And I know I've seen people drop, you know, north of 15 grand when they don't have it at all.
Yeah.
On car loans, not realizing how much they're actually paying in what we, you know, kind of use the negative interest.
Yeah.
Or which is you're actually paying the bank money.
Yeah.
So explain to me, what are your thoughts on car loans at a young age and getting an expensive, not even expensive, but I think anything above 15 grand when you're still in high school, there's a lot of money on the car. You can get I bought my car for 2.5 and it was great.
Oh, correct.
I still got it.
Yeah, cars are a beautiful thing. You ask anyone that's bought an expensive car, they'll tell you it's the biggest mistake. I can say that, and I think it's all well and good to say it when you've done it. You know, I wish I could wind the clock back and didn't buy my sports car, which is a 2-door convertible, you know, 350Z at the time, and spent, I don't know, $30,000-$40,000 on it. I think I needed to maybe get out of my system. Yeah. And I think that's the hard part is you go, well, I don't want to deny my youth when I go, I can lash out and buy a nice car. You'll look back and tell your younger self that was a foolish mistake. You talk about spending $15,000. I've had mates that spent that on modifications or sound systems. And I say doing that to a car, it's a bit like pulling a piece of string because you'll just keep going and going. So you do the wheels and then you got to do the exhaust. You do the exhaust, you got to do the turbo. You just keep going. It's like you just have to keep out competing and out spending, right? And
it's funny because I was going to say this as well. Actually, I was going to say this, but the mod guys, you know, there's always those guys who are the car guys. I think it's not as bad for them because that's what their passion is. They're spending money on their passion.
Yeah.
You know, they're always working on the car in the garage every weekend. And so I feel like if that's where they're spending their money versus me, I more prefer, you know, tech and stuff. So I spend my money on that. You know, girls might love spending money on outfits every single weekend and stuff. Yeah. Obviously, the cars is an expensive habit. Yeah. But I see a lot of guys who get a shit box and then fix it up, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah. It's more, I see people buy cars for 30 grand when they could do the same thing with a normal car.
Oh, correct. I get it. I think drive a safe car would be my. I've got a very young baby, and I'm second she can get a car. I'm like, get a safe car. You don't need an expensive car when you're young. Yeah. Right. I think well, you're not going to go out and buy a property instead with that money, but that money can be saved up, right? And I think if you have that mentality to go, I can save this money, and I'm not going to buy the expensive car. Yeah, your ego takes a dent, and you have to put that to the back and go, well, it's delayed gratification. Whereas that whole buy a car now type thing, get finance on it, that's instant gratification. Yeah. And I think that's the hard part because it's so easy as a young person to get a car loan.
Just go over there and you can just get a finance.
The bank will give you a car loan, mate. You just need a heartbeat and a couple of pay slips, even if you're casual, and you'll get a car loan. Yeah. Because you've actually got a car to show that you're buying for it as well.
So no, there's going to milk an extra, I mean, as we were saying before,
high interest rate, like you'll pay 15% on a car loan sometimes.
And what does that mean? Like, let's say we get a $30,000 car. Yeah. What does that mean if you 15% interest rate?
Sure. So depending on the loan term, you might go 3 or 4, sometimes even 5 years on a car loan. Potentially the cost to borrow that $30,000 may actually be $40,000 that you've paid on the $30,000 that you borrowed, which is the principal plus the interest on the life of the loan. So let's say the car, you've had that for 4 years, now you've paid $40,000. Yeah. Not to bamboozle anyone with numbers, but just kind of work this out. You bought the car for $30,000. Over the life of the loan, you've paid $40,000. Yeah. But the value of the car's come down to, call it even 20 at
if
best.
You're lucky.
In 4 years, it might be worth half that. Yeah. So you paid $40,000 for a car that's worth 15. How is that even fiscally responsible? Yeah. It's madness. Yeah. Isn't it? But I think the hard part for us is we're rewiring everyone because that's what our parents did. That's what just society does. So why am I the black sheep? Correct.
Get a loan.
Get a new car.
Yeah, get a new car.
Statistically, mate, when people buy a brand new house, within 6 months they'll buy a brand new car. Yeah, and the banks know it, so they'll sell you a car loan when you buy a house.
Upsell you.
So we've conditioned everyone to kind of go, well, look at me, I've kind of made it. I mean, everyone loves Warren Buffett for like financial quotes, but he drives an absolute shitbox, this bloke.
I think he eats Maccas every morning or something, right? Yeah.
I can't spruik that from a dietary point of view, but from a cost-saving point of view, he lives a very frugal lifestyle. Yeah. We're talking about one of the richest men in the world.
80 billion or something?
Right. I mean, numbers, it's just irrelevant for this bloke. But he drives a crap car because cars go down in value. Can you imagine if you told someone, no one would think twice about spending $15,000 on a car.
Yeah.
But ask someone to put $15,000 in shares and they'd convince you of all the reasons to not do it.
Yeah, it's risky. It might not happen. Oh.
Right? It might go down in value. It's like, well, the car's always going to go down in value.
Yeah.
The shares
Might go
have
back
a
up.
good chance, if you bought really well, they'll have a chance of going up. Yet we're still leaning towards the car. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And who's selling us the dream on the new car? It's the car salesman.
Ads, it's years of conditioning of seeing BMW on billboards, seeing Aston Martin, you got Bond or whatever it
Correct,
is,
mate. And
whatever the marketing is.
there's nothing wrong. I think what we're saying is there's no judgments here. There's nothing wrong with it. But if we're talking about laying good foundations for your own finances, the only person that's going to watch out for your own money is yourself. Everyone else is going to spend your money for you, which is what advertising and marketing is.
And so just to really kind of drill in the car, you paid the car's $30,000.
Yep.
But it's cost you $40,000 over 4 years, which means you've had to pay off the $30,000 for the physical car and an extra $10,000 in interest because you couldn't pay it up front.
Correct.
And then on the flip side, because you've been driving it for 4 years, if you went to sell it, a car that you paid 40 grand for, you want to go sell it, it's probably going to be between 15 and 20 grand, which is a loss of 20 grand in 4 years.
Correct. And you can't really see that money because you've just paid the repayment, so you don't feel like you've missed that $20,000.
And it's been over 45 years.
Correct, but that money's disappeared from your personal balance sheet, call it.
Which is just insane. I guess maybe I've been raised differently, but that seems insane to me.
Oh, it should be insane to everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone should be alarmed at going, why are we borrowing money on something that goes down in value? I think that's where we try to coach a lot of our younger clients is don't borrow for something that goes down in value. Borrow for something that increases in value.
Even if it's not as sexy or as attractive.
Correct.
Yeah.
Boring.
So I always hear people talking about car, and in my head it's like I'm gonna learn from the people who've made the mistakes before me.
Correct.
I feel like I don't need to make it. I've heard enough people have made this mistake. It's clearly a mistake. Don't do it. Yeah. But I mean, if people want to do it, sure.
I think some people need to learn. Some people will only learn by making their own mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's fair. I think we all go on our own learning journey. Everyone learns slightly differently. I had to learn the hard way. My parents would constantly be in my ear, why are you driving such an expensive car? But in my mind, I felt like I made it. I look back and I was foolish, but you can't tell a 20-something-year-old that they're wrong, unfortunately, and no judgments, mate. Find out the hard way.
Yeah. Awesome. So that was car. I'm glad we covered that. So I just, I think it's super important.
Yeah.
So Sydney, I'm not sure how much my audience knows about the housing market and everything, but I know Sydney for the past few years hasn't been going up, has it? It's been steady or going down, but is it just starting to head back up again?
Yeah, right as we speak, property prices are on the way back up. We've always said that has Sydney peaked. Mate, I always look back at like newspapers from like the 1950s, and if you go dig up old newspapers, Sydney house prices were an issue then, and they're still an issue now.
They're going to go down, but they're always going to go back up.
Right?
Yeah.
And if anyone gets a chance to travel, it's the best thing you'll ever do. But if you go overseas and you come back to Sydney, this is one of the best cities in the world, right? The beaches, the weather. Look at our winter. It's safe. It's English speaking. Like, you look at all the factors that kind of influenced our lifestyle. Yeah. There's a reason why this is one of the best cities in the world. And unfortunately, we pay a huge premium to live in this city, but for good reason, mate.
And that's why I think if you want to live in Sydney, I feel like just having a job for 50K is not, especially as it's getting more and more expensive, it's going to get more difficult and more difficult.
You actually go backwards financially. Yeah.
And it's almost like, if you're just getting a standard job for 50K, you're not going to get paid more in Sydney than you would in somewhere else for a standard job. And I think Sydney is full of opportunity. So if you're going to live here, you might as well take advantage of it. Which is what you've kind of done. You've gone from the corporate world to the business world. Yep. And I imagine you would have taken a hit financially in that transition. Absolutely. But you're a lot more happier now and all that sort of stuff.
It's everything, mate. I think when I look back at my personal journey, I started the business with the intention that I could control my own destiny. That's a huge part of it. We did want to start a family, so this gives me, I don't think flexibility is the right word when you own your business, because you actually end up working more hours. Yeah. But the chance that I do get to spend time at home without having to kind of.
I think flexibility is right. You work more hours, but you can work when you want to.
That's
which is
it.
flexibility.
That's my definition of flexibility.
Yeah.
Be
So you can, if you want to go to something on Wednesday night, you can just work Saturday night instead.
Correct.
Or whatever
right?
it is.
I'll make it up somehow as well.
And did you start off with your wife in the business?
She volunteered after hours. We always said the goal was Bernie to work in the business because we have a good what I call yin and yang, so a balance.
Yeah.
We have each other's strengths and weaknesses covered between the two of us. So from our point of view, it's a really good partnership. For a lot of other couples, it doesn't work out between them, or they just can't understand working together. It works fine for us. So Bernie still, when we started out, Bernie still had her corporate role. She was working in human resources and would work after hours to help support me and on the weekends. And so, I mean, doing the 7 days, we just said there has to be a reason we're doing this.
Yeah.
But we always believed that it would work. And I think that's one part that we always stuck true to ourselves was this is going to work and there's no other way. It has to work for us as well.
Well, that's the way you got to do it. You know, my dad was the opposite. My mum had a business and my dad was helping her whenever he could. And I mean, you can't just both drop your corporate jobs.
Correct.
You know,
it becomes a tipping point where it becomes okay for someone to join the business. But yeah, it is a huge risk that you do take, right?
And how do you fit? Because I've gone straight into business.
Yep.
I went to high school, I did some part-time work, and then I got the job with Glenn, and I've kind of just went straight into it.
Yeah.
And I think it's been amazing. I wouldn't change it, but I do think, you know, there's this huge entrepreneurial and business owner super sexy nowadays. I think despite how difficult it actually is, people don't realize it because they only see the successful people, the top 5%.
Right.
And like I personally almost think it would have been great for me to have got a job, got some experience, and then started my business, which it sounds like exactly what you've done.
Yeah.
Do you think the business would be where it was if you hadn't worked in, you know, Commonwealth and all in that for the, how long, what, 5, 6, 7 years?
Yeah, my corporate career. I definitely needed that. As much as you get itchy feet to go out there and do it yourself.
Yeah.
I still think you need good, it gave you a good social, I mean, being in business is sometimes lonely, man.
That's the biggest,
I think that's the
hardest
biggest
thing
killer.
I find, definitely.
Like you've got to get up there and motivate yourself every day of the week.
No accountability.
Right? And no accountability. The only people that call you typically are customers who want something from you.
Client, yeah.
So no one calls you to check in how you're doing. You're working more hours. You're making less money. No wonder so many small businesses fail, right? There's more than enough customers out there. So I don't think that's the reason they fail. It's because either they lack motivation or they have the wrong product, perhaps. So
it's exactly the hardest part I've found about running a business has been the loneliness. You know,
yeah,
I'm very social,
correct,
and like, you know, there's some statistic like 60% of couples meet at work,
right?
And so I just work in a desk in a corner by myself. You know, it's the same thing. I talk with a bit of different team and different people here and there, but mainly it's just at the computer, have a few calls with clients or whatever it is, and it does get very lonely.
Correct.
And
that's probably the unspoken side to it, right? Because I think everyone, like I call them wannapreneurs, they want to be out there, starting a business. I'm like, what type of business do you want? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, well, that's not a good enough reason. You have to find something that either you're really good at or people really want. Yeah. So, I mean, that's where I'm like, mortgage broking isn't the sexiest business. In fact, it takes a beating sometimes, right? But we're proud of what we do because it's not about us. This business, if we don't have customers, we can be the best mortgage brokers, but we've got no one to serve. So I think we've really had to shift our focus to go, we're here to serve and help other people. Yeah. And what we do is we help people buy properties that makes it stress-free for them. Yeah. That's what we do. And so we got to be the best at what we do. And that's the part that resonates with me. Because I don't want to do something, be mediocre at it. I want to be the best at it. Yeah. And that's having that focus for me makes us good at what we do. There's no ego to that. It's just that we're proud of what we do. And I think that's the other part. There's no ego in business. You're actually serving other people. That's what customer service is. You're serving other people. So where's the ego, right? And I think for us, the other part's enjoying. So enjoying the journey.
Fulfillment. At
the start, it is a grind, but that's what separates people that are going to make it versus the people that potentially won't make it. Mate. But I think it's a great journey if you do have that good foundation, that good basis. It almost goes back to your initial question about the uni. Uni will help you start something and finish it because you don't get your degree or qualification or the graduation ceremony without doing all the work. So you earn the right to be up there on that stage getting a degree. It's the same way in business. Like cut your teeth and you learn the hard way to earn potentially good dollars in the future.
And it's like that, there's an image of the iceberg. You've got the iceberg, which is up here, which is all your success. And underneath,
what people see, you're right.
Underneath is your 3 years, 4 years of, grinding, calling, trying to make a living and everything.
7 days a week and, giving up a social life. But I'd say that's the reality of it. But the upside to it is huge. So if it's something that you really want to do, then go all in.
Yeah. No, 100% agree.
Yeah.
So just before we wrap up, there's a question I want to ask. I'm going to ask all my guests this question.
Yep.
You're number one. So it's basically, what would your one piece? We've covered a lot of it, but what would your one piece of advice be for the younger generation? If there's kids in school or university who are listening to this, they're interested in learning about finance, property, interested in how to be financially smart instead of being a dumbass and blowing it in your 20s, what is your one piece of advice for them?
One piece of advice would be maybe not to be impressionable. It's really hard to tell to someone at a young age who probably is very impressionable.
As in by, influenced by their parents or people around them or the media.
Yeah, because everyone's coming at you,
yeah,
right? So your parents are telling you one thing, like do this, fit in the box, for example, follow the pathway. Then you look at people that are rich and kind of made and go, well, I want what they have. So I think it's a combination of like the no judgments, but also not being impressionable.
Yeah,
like, be true to who you are. Is where I really go with that to people. If your parents told you were stubborn, that just means you take no for an answer. If you're told that you're selfish, it means that you're going to be a great salesperson because you're like you know what you need to do. So I think there's kind of ways to say like whatever tag you've got, whatever you've got, don't let that define you.
Yeah,
that's one part. Don't be impressionable or led down by what other people are trying to sell you, and no judgments as well, because I think everyone's on their own journey, on their own pathway to figure out what they want to do in life. No one's more right or wrong than you. And that's where I always say, just go back to what you want to do. And it's really hard when you're young, but as long as you kind of keep that at the center of what you're doing, I think that's your true north.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why you'll hear so many messages that come at you.
Especially with social media nowadays.
Right. There's so many messages and everyone's selling and everyone's spruiking and everyone's showing off. That's all right. Don't hate it. Don't absorb it. All right, I'm just on my own journey, and I think that comes when we're comfortable in our own skin, which is really, again, I empathize for young people. It's really hard to say that, but as long as you can keep coming back to that, that to me is when you'll do well, because you're running your own race and you're not competing with anyone else, mate.
Yeah. No, I love it. It's great advice. Thanks so much for coming on.
No,
just before we jump off, where can people find you if they're interested in finding out about getting into a home?
No dramas. So our business is called Atelier Wealth. Search us. We're on Facebook, Atelier Wealth AU. Check me out on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Aaron Christi David. And you put our details in potential show notes. So love to have a
just
chat to anyone that's don't feel like you can't reach out. We'd love to have a chat and answer any questions you've got.
And you guys do end-to-end solution. So I've got no idea how to buy a home. I can come in and you'll do everything.
Yeah, correct. That's how it should be.
Yeah.
Let's do the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah.
And let's help you get to where you want to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron.
Mate, thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Pleasure.
All right. If you are still here, thank you so much for listening to this entire episode. If you got some value out of it, it would mean the world to me if you left a review on iTunes or shared it with your friends or family. Otherwise, I'll be putting up videos of this episode on Instagram and Facebook. So check it out there at Byron Dempsey or at Driven Young Podcast. And I'll see you on the next one.